As you probably know by now, House of the Dragon and its parent show Game of Thrones are derived from books by the supremely talented George R.R. Martin. However, if you've read Fire and Blood, you will realize that the show, which has just aired on HBO, took one or two liberties which aren't entirely true to the source material. Today, we're discussing the biggest changes from Fire and Blood on House of the Dragon. Let's jump straight in with Alicent and Viserys' wedding. In the show, Alicent and Rhaenyra are around the same age, but that's not quite how it went down in the book. Alicent and Viserys are only separated by just over a decade, incidentally around the same gap the other way between Alicent and Rhaenyra. Making both ladies around the same age in the show simply heightens the feeling of abandonment for the princess. Of course, we never get to see the king and Madame Hightower tie the knot, possibly due to the insane levels of violence that tend to go hand in hand with big events in the Game of Thrones universe. Daemon and House Valerian both boycott the wedding in the book, Daemon for being passed over and Lord Valerian for the insult to Viserys declining to marry his daughter, even though she is barely out of nappies. By all accounts, a lovely time was had by all at the wedding in Fire and Blood, but an on-screen wedding would have been a nice moment between two women who had been friends, albeit briefly, before the treachery that followed from Alicent. Of course, the showrunners have missed the boat now that Viserys has been killed off, but it might be nice to readdress this in the future via a flashback perhaps? Next up, it's Rhaenyra and Harwin's relationship. To say the showrunners skipped over this relationship would be a huge understatement. Between episodes 5 and 6, there is a supposed gap of 10 years, and when the 6th episode begins, not only are Rhaenyra and Alicent played by different actresses, but they both have plenty of kids running about too. Rhaenyra's brood are all feathered by Sir Harwin Strong, given the fact that her husband is gay and the arrangement they both made before tying the knot, allowing both to see other people. However, we would have liked to see a little more from Harwin, at least to explain who exactly he is and how the pair got together. No sooner have we met him than he is being brutally burnt alive thanks to a suspicious fire at Harrenhal. Of course, his death should have impacted Rhaenyra and her illegitimate sons much more than it appeared to. If the show's creators had bothered to just insert a scene or two from the book, it would have given Harwin a bigger part to play and revealed more of why Rhaenyra is so eager to quickly remarry her own uncle, Daemon. Also, she appears to have little worry about what might happen to her own children, who were obviously fathered by Harwin. Why? The show fails to tell us. We're talking Rhaenyra and Laena next. Stay with us. Another relationship that was skipped over in the show is Rhaenyra and Laena's. Of course, Laena dies in the show shortly into adulthood, but in the books, Rhaenyra becomes close with her cousin and sister-in-law after her relationship with Alicent hits the skids. Including this relationship would have humanized Laena a little more, but it would also have shown fans just how much Rhaenyra and Daemon's wedding was an insult to the great House Valerian. Undoubtedly, Laena suffers the most from the book-to-screen adaptation and goes from being a central character in the books to a bit part player in the TV show. I mean, in the books, Laena is a fierce dragon rider, but is reduced to being an unhappy wife in the show. She also goes to Vhagar in the book in the hope of riding him one last time before her death, but in the show, they decided to have her commit suicide at the hands or breath of her own dragon. Laena was an experienced dragon rider and explored in the books, but has all of these qualities ripped away from her by the show, which is such a shame. What do you guys make of how Laena was portrayed? Sir Criston Cole coming through next. Cole turns into one of the most unlikable characters on the show, proving to Rhaenyra that she almost certainly dodged a bullet. Not that she is winning any awards for Person of the Year in Westeros, however. In the books, Cole is seemingly involved in a tourney every other week, introducing us to a plethora of new characters along the way. However, bar the one at the beginning of the season in which he unseats Daemon, that's it for Criston and his prowess in the tourneys. The way he is portrayed as a jilted lover and petulant baby takes away from the fearsome qualities he undoubtedly has. In Fire and Blood, he measuredly slits the throat of Lord Lyman Beesbury for objecting too strongly to Alicent, but the creators of the show couldn't even get this right. And the way he accidentally murders Beesbury in the show just adds to the caricature the writers have turned him into, sadly. Cole still has the opportunity to see the error in his ways in future seasons, but we're pretty sure his die is cast as a true House of the Dragon bad guy after season 1. What do you think? Next up, it's the Triarchy. House of the Dragon has made the big mistake of assuming that all fans have read the books and simply simply don't explain who on earth the Triarchy are and why they are so feared. The show rushes through the war in the Stepstones, and even after Lord Corlys is almost killed by them, we still know very little about who exactly they are, what they want, and what their motivations are. If the show had bothered to let us in on the big Triarchy secret, fans might not feel as distant towards that particular war as they probably do. I mean, we simply have no idea who rules the mysterious Triarchy and how exactly Lord Corlys came to be laid up for so long after almost losing his life in the war. The book reveals that there was a fresh invasion force under the command of a devious Tyroshi captain named Rakallio Rhydun, surely one of the most curious and flamboyant rogues in the annals of history, of whom we have heard exactly zero in the show. Possibly next season? We hope so, because this storyline appears to be the one with the least amount of explanation around it so far. We're talking King Viserys again now, stay tuned. Hattie Considine's King Viserys is easily the most gracious, courteous, and chivalrous king in the Game of Thrones universe. He is also constantly working to in King's Landing and the wider world. However, in the book, Viserys eventually brings Rhaenyra back to King's Landing in a bid to prepare her for leadership, and it also goes into detail about his relationship with his grandchildren, beautifully outlined in his stories about wildlings, giants, and wargs, which enthrall them so much. This is completely absent in the show, and we unfortunately only really see Viserys as a sick old man in the latter half of the series. Viserys wasn't simply a leader hell-bent on keeping his empire together, he was also a loving family man, and why the show didn't bother to portray him more in this way is a mystery. As plot points go, this isn't particularly important, but it would have gone some way to explaining why Alicent's treachery was so egregious. What do you make of how King Viserys was portrayed? Give us your thoughts below. And finally, where on earth is Daeron? Daeron Targaryen is Alicent and Viserys' youngest son in the books, and while the show's creators have claimed that he exists in House of the Dragon, there is literally no reference to him whatsoever. Daeron is serving as squire to Lord Hightower in Oldtown in a bid to teach him about how the world works, and showrunner Ryan Condal and George R.R. Martin himself explain that, quote, "It's not our modern day where you had a 6-year-old, you would FaceTime them every day and see how they were doing and write letters. Whilst we completely get that, we simply don't understand how there is literally no mention whatsoever of one of the king's children. I mean, of course, he has no chance of affecting the succession. This means he isn't particularly integral to the plot of the show, but still. Could it be that Daeron has a part to play in later seasons of the show? Possibly, and having lived away from the trappings of wealth and power, well, less than his siblings at least, we're still hoping for the possibility of a relatively normal Targaryen / Hightower child, although we doubt it. What do you guys make of the glaring omission of Daeron Targaryen? Let us know below. As always, thank you for dropping by today, and remember to stop by again next time for some more news. Also, why not do us a big favor by liking and sharing today's video while also subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on more great content in the future. Thanks for watching.